Today I'm going to review briefly some rotation practice problems. Let's look at this first problem. This problem says, which shows the image RST after the rotation, and we have our mapping rule. This mapping rule tells us that we switch the x and y coordinates and then negate the x. Well, in order to answer this problem, the first thing that we must do is identify the coordinates of the original vertex. So T is located at -1 and 7. R is located at -2 and 1. And S is located at 1 and 3. So once we have written down those vertices, we will then translate those vertices using this mapping rule to find out our new coordinates. So for T, we will switch the x and y coordinates. And then we would negate the x, so we would get a positive 1. For R prime, we would switch the x and y coordinates, and then we would negate the x. And for S prime, we would switch the x and y coordinates, and then negate the x. So there we found our resulting vertices after that mapping rule. Well, let's map our T's on all these different images to find out which of these would represent or show the image after that rotation. So we're looking for T at 7 and 1. Here we have T at 7 and 1, so that is correct. Let's check the next one. Here we have T, it's not at 7 and 1, so that will not be our answer choice. Here we have T, but not at 7 and 1, so that's not our answer choice. And here we have T, again, not at 7 and 1, so that won't be an answer choice. Well, since we've already eliminated all the answer choices, let's just double check this image to make sure that it is correct. We need to get S at 3 and -1, which is correct. And we need to get R at 1 and 2, which is correct. So therefore, A is in fact our correct answer. Let's look at the next problem. This problem states, which shows the image of quadrilateral ABCD after the rotation R about the origin at 90 degrees. Well, we know that the rule for R about the origin 90 degrees is you take the original coordinates, you switch the x, y, and coordinate, and then you negate the y. So this is our rule for a rotation about the origin 90 degrees. Well, now that we've done that, we're going to do the same thing that we did before, and we're going to map out these vertices. So A is located at -1 and 0. Vertex B is located at 0 and 1, or 0 and -1. Vertex C is located at -2, -3. And vertex D is located at -3 and -2. Okay, now that we've listed out all these vertices, we want to use the mapping rule to find out what our resulting vertices would be. So, like before, we would switch the x and y coordinates. And then go ahead and negate the y. Unnegated 0 just stays 0. Switch the x and y coordinates, and then negate the y. Switch the x and y coordinates, and then negate the y. And one last one, switch the x and y coordinates, and then negate the y. So there are our resulting vertices. So we're trying to find which of these rules or which of these images will allow us to get our vertices on these resulting coordinates. So let's look for A. A needs to be at 0 and -1. In A is at 0, -1. At B, A is not at 0 and -1, so we can cross out that answer. At C, we do have A at 0 and -1. But at D, A is not at 0 and -1, so we can cross out that answer. Now let's look for B prime. B prime needs to be at 1 and 0. Here we have, Here we have B prime at 1 and 0. And here we actually don't have B prime at 1 and 0, so we can cross out that answer choice. And we now know that A is our answer because A is the diagram which shows the image of the quadrilateral ABCD after the translation rotation about the origin 90 degrees. Let's look at the next problem. Let us look at this next problem. This problem asks, which shows us the pre-image of the quadrilateral W prime, X prime, Y prime, and Z prime before the figure was rotated according to the rule, and then we are given a specific mapping rule. Well, the first thing I would do is identify what mapping rule this is. This mapping rule is our mapping rule for a rotation about the origin 180 degrees. Wonderful. So now that we've done that, and we know that we need to identify our pre-image, what I would do is list out what this mapping rule is telling us to do. This mapping rule is telling us to go ahead and negate the x and the y coordinates. Well, in order to find the pre-image, we know that we must work backwards in order to find the pre-image. We know that we must work backwards because we are given our image and being asked to find our pre-image. So the first thing we would do is list out our pre-image coordinates. Or list out our image coordinates, rather, sorry. So we have Z prime located at 3 and 5. We have Y prime here located at 6 and 4. We have W prime located at 2 and 3. And finally, we have X prime located at 6 and 3. Well, the opposite and the reversal of a negation is also a negation. So our pre-image coordinates would be Z is located at -3, -5. Y is located at -6, -4. W is located at -2, -3, and X is located at -6 and -3. Well, now that we've done that, we want to go ahead and look at these different images and see which of these represents our pre-image located at these coordinates. So let's look at Z first. Here we have Z being located at -5 and -3. Well, we know that Z has to be located at -3, -5, so that is not our answer choice. Here we have Z being located at 5, and negative 3. Again, we need negative 3, negative 5, so that is not our answer choice. Here we have z being located at negative 3 and negative 5 like we need. But let's check the next image to see if that also has a z located at negative 3 and negative 5. As we can see here, this z is located at negative 5 and negative 3, which once again is incorrect. Therefore, from just looking at the coordinates of the vertex z, we can conclude that C is in fact our answer choice. Let's look at the next problem. Let us look at this next problem. This problem states that trapezoid GHJK was rotated 180 degrees about the origin to determine the location of G', H', J', and K' as shown on the graph. What are the coordinates of the pre-image point, H? So, we are looking for our pre-image point H. And we know that we have completed a rotation 180 degrees about the origin. Well, first what we would do is write down our rule for 180 degrees about the origin. When we have a rotation 180 degrees about the origin, we keep the x and y coordinates where they are, but we negate them. Wonderful. And now we're trying to find what the pre-image of point H is. So we want to identify the vertex of H' on the image. H' is located at negative 3 and negative 2. Well, in order to reverse this negation, we would simply negate. So we can identify that H is located at 3 and 2, which makes C our correct answer. Let's look at the next problem. This problem states, a triangle has vertices R, and where those coordinates of R is, S and what the coordinates of S is, and T and what the coordinates of T are. The triangle is transformed according to the rule R, which stands for rotation about the origin 270 degrees. Well, we know that the mapping rule for rotation about the origin 270 degrees is you take the original coordinates and you map them to switching the x and y coordinates and then negating the x. We are being asked then, what are the coordinates of S'? So, the best thing to do would be to once again write down the coordinates of the original S in the pre-image. And then after we've done that, going ahead and finding the new coordinates of S'. So S', well, we would switch the x and y coordinates around. And then after we do that, we would go ahead and negate them. Or we would go ahead and negate the x rather, just the x. And so we get that the answer is A, because A matches the coordinates after that rotation rule. Okay, let's look at this next problem. This problem states a triangle is rotated 90 degrees about the origin. What rule describes that transformation? Well, we know that our different rotations have different mapping rules. And so a rotation about the origin 90 degrees actually gives us the mapping rule of switching the x and y coordinates and then negating the y. all we would simply have to do to answer this problem is find which of these answer choices matches this mapping rule. And the answer is B. Okay, let's look at the next problem. This problem says that a pentagon is transformed according to the rule R about the origin 180 degrees. What is another way to state this transformation? Well, just like the previous question, all we would have to do is identify the mapping rule. And our mapping rule tells us that when we have a rotation about the origin 180 degrees, we take the original x and y coordinates and simply negate them. Therefore, in our answer choices, we're looking for which answer choice closely matches this, and that is our answer choice A, and so A will be our answer. Sometimes, however, we are given the mapping rule and being asked to find what the specific transformation was. So here we have quadrilateral ABC is transformed according to the rule. And here we see we switched the x and y coordinates and then negated the x. What is another way to state this rule? Well, another way to state this rule is AR rotation about the origin 270 degrees. Wonderful. Let us now look at our final problem. This problem states parallelogram ABCD is rotated to create the image A', B', C', and D'. We are trying to define which rule describes this transformation. Well, the easiest way to do that is to list out what the coordinates of the pre-image were and what the coordinates of the resulting image were. So A is located at 2 and 5. B is located at 5 and 4. C is located at 5 and 2. And D is located at 2 and 3. And our resulting vertices after that transformation are A' is located at 5 and -2. B' is located at 4 and -5. C' is located at 2 and -5. And D' is located at 3 and -2. Okay, well, once we've done that, we want to identify what transformation did we use to get from our pre-image coordinates to our image coordinates. Well, let's look and see if we have a pattern. We can see that there is, in fact, a pattern. We can see that we have switched our x and y coordinates. So, therefore, we know that C and D are not our answer. Why? Well, because the x and y coordinates are not switched in C and D. So let's see. After we do a switch of the x and y coordinates, well, then we see that we have a negation of the x coordinate. Well, A tells us that we'll switch the x and y coordinates and have a negation of the x coordinate. While B tells us we'll have a switching of the x and y coordinate, but a negation of the y coordinate. We need switching of the x and y coordinate with a negation of the x coordinate, so A is our answer choice. I hope this was helpful, and I hope that this helps you be successful in your independent practice problems.